Look, man. Are we live right now?
Yeah.
Oh, my God. This is not... I was about to say the really wrong thing, like really fast.
We're good.
So, I was going to say an insulting comment. That wouldn't have been good.
You say an insulting comment? Does that ever happen?
They all stay in my head. I've learned, all my years of work
Yeah.
and everything. I think I've only had one argument with a coworker.
Okay.
How I avoid that is I don't talk about people. I keep all my thoughts in my head.
Hello and welcome to Right on 14th. This is Mike Parr.
And Christina Caramo.
And we host Right on 14th, which is a podcast focused on local issues to the 14th Congressional District with a right twist to it.
Yes. So also, we want to give a plug to the 14th Congressional District. So please make sure that you go and support them because they're doing wonderful things in our district and that don't just help the district, but the state elect Republican candidates. So please make sure that you check out the 14cd.com and .com, right? Yeah.
.com,
okay.
yeah.
Making sure. And also, you can follow us on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter. And if you are a candidate and you would like to be on the show, we would love to have you. So you can just email us at righton14th@gmail.com.
Definitely. And before we get into the rest of it, 14cd.com is an awesome resource also to become a precinct delegate. Mm-hmm. Precinct delegate is the grassroots of the party. And if you want to be a precinct delegate, you go online, you fill out an affidavit that says, hey, my name is Mike Parr and I live at 123 Main Street and I want to be more involved with the party. Bam. You will be on the ballot officially to get voted in as an official party member. Super cool. And then you get to have more power and more say in the elections of who you want in the ballot on the future for the Republican side of the ballot. So super cool, super easy to get involved, great way to have a lot of fun, get involved in politics, and just all around great. So head on over, 14cd.com. Great resource. Cannot recommend it enough.
For sure. So moving right along, we're going to start off talking about bills that have been passed. So U.S. Senate Joint Resolution 54 to kill the resolution to remove armed forces from Yemen. It passed 55-44. So what do you think, Mike?
So let's start off with Stabenow voted no on this, and the no means pretty much to keep armed forces in the region. So what is Yemen? Yemen is on the Arabian Peninsula. It's just to the south of Saudi Arabia, and it is in currently kind of a civil war. And Yemen has been pretty good in the past as kind of a peacekeeper in the region between Saudi Arabia and Iran, who are differing versions of the Islamic faith. And unfortunately, because they are in civil war right now, they're kind of screwing up everybody around them because they can't moderate anymore. So it's a tragic situation where millions of people are kind of dying right now. And whatever we can do to help, I feel like we should probably do to help. I'm not a military interventionist by any means of the imagination here, where, just send them in and the military is going to fix the problem. But when millions of people are killing their own millions of people inside their own country, then maybe there's something good we can do for them there,
It's funny. It makes me think about, I realize I say it's funny a lot, but
Yeah.
but it's interesting, though, that, since the 90s, we've been saying peace in the Middle East. And it's like there hasn't been peace in the Middle East since like 600 AD. So I don't think that's going to happen. But I'm sorry, I'm being pessimistic, but just a realist at the same time. But it's really interesting kind of what's going on. It's like it's in an Islamic civil war.
Yeah.
That's kind of, if you really sit back and observe the whole region, that's what's going on.
That was the Arab Spring that happened, right? It was pretty much a civil war throughout, or at least an uprising throughout the Middle East. Mm-hmm. And it was a populist rebellion.
Well,
no?
I don't know about populist. I think it's certain groups want an Islamic theocracy. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah.
That's more so than that, because some of these rebels that we've been backing, like even in Syria, these aren't rebels who are looking for a better world. These are rebels who are looking to establish an Islamic theocracy.
Yeah,
a
like
lot of times backed by Iran. So it's a tricky situation.
Well, they want the caliphate back, right? Like the Ottoman Empire. And I don't think that that's such a bad thing.
Oh.
Yeah? Really?
Yeah, I don't think the Ottoman Empire would be our friend.
I think that they would grant a lot of stability to the region, which would behoove almost everybody, right?
I think they would heavily persecute Christians.
They may.
They will.
Well, it wasn't that way originally in the Ottoman Empire, that they allowed Christians especially to pass to Jerusalem with ease.
After they killed a bunch of them first.
After we killed a bunch of them first.
They started it.
Okay.
They started
All
it.
right, let's move on here.
Yes, let's move on.
U.S. House Bill 1865 to hold online publishers liable for users who engage in prostitution. Now, this passed 97-2, and Stabenow voted yes on this.
Well, yeah. So I think that's kind of a no-brainer. My question, Mike, is who are the two people who?
I didn't look up who the two people were. Obviously, it's not Stabenow, but I don't know. How do you feel about prostitution, real quick?
I think it's terrible, and I think it should be illegal.
Really?
Yes. Libertarianism a little
Yeah,
bit.
yep. I'm going to take the libertarian perspective on this and say, you know what? Like, it's been around forever. You're not going to get rid of it. You might as well legalize it and make money off of it.
No, because you're going to get more of it. Look, this is the thing.
Yeah, but it'll be regulated at least. And you won't have people passing along STDs and stuff, and you can make money off of it, and it'll be regulated. Like, if it's going to happen anyway, then it might as well... No? All right, come at me.
No, finish.
No, that's it.
I put on a posing for Facebook. No, but the thing about it is certain things people are going to do anyways. Whenever we as a society encourage it, you get more of it.
Yep.
And whenever you have people engaging in promiscuous behavior, you're going to get STDs.
Yeah.
Even, I mean, not to get all graphic, but okay, so we regulate and people get tests. I mean, what is that going to do? They're still going to screw around. We help them get condoms. That only stops
Oh, no.
AIDS
Go
or
take a
anything.
look at Las Vegas. Well, just outside Las Vegas in
Reno?
Nevada. Yeah, exactly. Where all these chick ranches are or whatever they're called. They're 100% protection required. You know why? Because it's legalized and it's restricted.
But if they have, that still doesn't, that only prevents certain things.
Oh, sure.
That's still only, that might stop AIDS, but that's about it. They got like a new strand of gonorrhea that's showing to be resistant to any type of antibiotic.
Ugh.
It's getting horrible because people, that's the disease, it's like a smart disease. So
Sure.
basically it morphs. The more antibiotic, it morphs to.
Did I just hear a pro-evolution thing come out of Christina's
That's not
mouth?
pro-evolution.
Oh,
It's
shoot.
adaptation. No, natural selection is not evidence of evolution. Oh my God,
man.
that's not evidence of evolution. That is not. That's just adaptation. It's about who survives, who dies, and who has babies. That's it. That's not
You
evolution.
just defined evolution.
That's not evolution. Suggests mutation.
Oh, man.
Of micro mutations.
All right.
Adaptions and mutations are two different things. Mike.
We gotta
move
move on. All right, so we already got in Middle East politics and the theory of evolution in the first 60 seconds of the show. We're doing good.
Let me say this real
Yeah,
thing
yeah.
about the prostitution part. It's not helpful to society because
Okay.
then you're going to encourage people because now prostitution has been shamed. As we admit, I mean, I'm sure you would agree. I know what you're saying.
And
You're
that's
saying,
worked well.
Well, let me say this. Well, that's other reasons why that has upticked. That has to do with the sexual revolution, not so much of prostitution, But when things are shamed, you get less of it. And there's no benefit to a person using prostitution as a means of income other than just the money. It's bad for their health and it's bad for their body.
All right, I'm putting this on the list for a whole nother main topic of a different show.
I get the libertarian argument that people should be able to do what they want.
Yeah.
I get that.
Especially with their own body. Like, it is your body. You do with it as you want.
But as a society, we still have a responsibility to be some type of moral gatekeepers. Otherwise, we'll be hedonistic. Hedonism has never benefited a society.
We as a society should be able to dictate what other people do with their own bodies?
No.
Is that what I just heard you say? Come on, man.
No, I'm talking about legalizing prostitution. There's a difference between telling people you can only hook up with this person. That's not what I'm talking about. But to allow it to be legal where people can stand on the corner and turn tricks, that's not good either. You ever been to Vegas?
Yeah, I've been to Vegas.
Okay, then. You don't want people standing on the corner. You drive
yeah.
down the street with your kid.
Oh, yeah.
Somebody out there doing all of this. No, you don't want that. People are going to do what they do.
Yeah.
I mean, ultimately, if two people meet online and the person sells themselves, I mean, I'm not going to say, let's kick down the door. You know what I'm saying? Hulk kick the door in. Because no, I'm saying is you still have to keep some type of gate on it. That's,
All right. This is a whole nother debate for a whole nother day, I feel like.
It really
Yeah. All right, moving on. The last bill that we got for today, U.S. House Bill 5247, let terminal patients try non-FDA approved treatments. Now, this passed in the House 267 to 149. Lawrence voted no on this. And there's a little note here that I didn't write, so Christina might have wrote this.
Yes, I did.
Defies logic. Tell me about that.
That's a case of it's their body. How are you going to tell somebody they can't try experimental medication on their body?
Oh, right. They should be allowed to.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're on the same page here.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, that's crazy. Like, to tell a person that they can't try an experimental medication on their body.
Yeah.
Like, what is wrong with Lauren? So obviously she got some pharmaceutical buddies or somebody's paying her off, because that makes absolutely no sense. This person is about to die.
Well, no, the pharmaceutical company's going to make money off this because they can sell you, snake oil at $10,000 per milliliter.
Maybe it depends on which companies.
Yeah.
It depends on which companies.
For sure.
Some companies may not be happy about that. And a lot of naturalists, I believe in natural medicine. And, I'm that person. But a lot of natural cures have been shunned. When you think about it, it's like ultimately plants are an excellent way of treating the human body. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
So, for example, like antibiotics. It's been found that my mother had pneumonia. And she was taking antibiotics. And antibiotics gives you all types of other, like appetite suppression and all kind of other issues. She went to a doctor who told her to take oil of oregano, and it knocked out her pneumonia. This is my mother, and this all happened last year.
Okay.
The oil of oregano helped her, whereas the antibiotic suppressed her appetite. She's already a small lady. It suppressed her appetite, plus it also hurts your digestion because it also hurts the probiotics that are in your stomach. Mm-hmm. So a lot of these drugs have horrible side effects, and there's a lot of herbs that can help. But because you have the corruption within the CDC and the pharmaceutical companies, that a lot of times those natural herbs don't get their due day that can actually heal people and only have positive side effects like makes your hair and skin stronger. Just saying. Anyway.
So why don't you think then that pharmaceutical company ABC markets these naturopathic remedies at enormous profit, right? Because if this thing actually worked and it worked through the FDA and the FDA confirmed, it works, then they could mark it up 1,000% and be like, here's your pill with yada yada herb in it for $1,000.
Mike, I am so glad you asked, because you can't patent an herb.
Okay.
You can't patent a plant. There's no money to be made.
So they're forcing us to believe that this pill that's got all these chemicals in it is so much better than oregano, and that's why we're forced to pay $100 per pill?
Human greed.
Okay.
Human greed. I mean, I
see what you're saying.
You know what I'm saying? Seriously, I just look at myself. You know what I'm saying? If you take a natural way of healing your body, it's so much cheaper. And so if you take a drug, it costs so much more money, and then typically it has side effects.
Yes.
So you're on more drugs. So by the time you're taking all these drugs to cure the symptoms, and if you even look at modern medicine, which you can see I have a problem with, it's like, in my opinion, they don't even really treat the illness. They treat the symptom.
Yeah.
Instead of the root cause, which many times it can be improved with diet and lifestyle changes. But there's not thousands and thousands of dollars, like even the opioid epidemic. That's a perfect example of pharmaceutical companies and the relationship between doctors and pharmaceutical companies just gone completely awry, because this is human greed, which is always a factor. But if I can heal myself off the dandelion greens that are growing in my yard, doctors and pharmaceutical companies aren't going to be making millions of dollars.
I agree. I'm just not convinced that the oil of oregano is as effective as a healing method as FDA-approved drugs.
But why?
And here's where it's easy to be a conspiracy theorist and say, I don't believe it because the FDA doesn't approve oil of oregano and they do approve XYZ medication.
But why do we see? Okay, I guess. But see, why do we trust them so much? I watched my own mom.
Yeah,
she took the antibiotic and it was not as effective, and it gave her other problems. And she took the oil of oregano and it healed her problem, plus no side effects. And typically, when you take herbs, they have other benefits. Like typically, when you think of good health, a person you can tell people are healthy if they have bright eyes and they have healthy skin and hair. I mean, that's it. So those are the benefits. So it's a win-win.
Well,
and just to
sure,
trust the
but you might
FDA,
have...
because the FDA said so, the FDA also loves giving genetically modified food. That is a whole other thing.
That is a whole nother topic.
That the FDA also approved is showing to be detrimental, and all of a sudden, since we've been eating GMO food.
Hold on now. Okay. That's a whole nother conversation.
Okay, moving on.
All right. So yesterday, Christina and I braved that hurricane that came through mid-Michigan.
Horrible.
And we went up to Michigan State University, my alma mater, Go Green, to see the gubernatorial town hall, which was very cool. So we had Colbeck there, and we had Callie there, and we had Dr. Hines there. And you'll notice that we're not saying a fourth name because, again, Shooty was a no-show, which is really interesting, right? Is that we have these constant three really involved, really engaged politicians who say, you know, we want to go out there and we want to talk to the public and we want to hear from them and we want to see what they have to say. And then we've got Shooty who just doesn't show up.
Yeah, so we'll just leave it like that. He just didn't come, and the other three were there ready to engage. And it was a really interesting debate.
It was.
They were, it was really nice to see. On the bright side of politics, a lot of times we're always critics. I guess me and Mike are we're pundits, I guess.
Yep.
We are. Well, that's what we do. So it was really nice to see, Colbeck and Callie and Hines, up there really passionate and serious. And it was like they really cared.
Yep.
It was like they genuinely cared. So it was a really interesting thing. They talked about gun control, which, as conservatives, they kind of seem to have the same, not same, but the similar stance, if you will, as far as protecting the Second Amendment. Also was interesting, Senator Colbeck, he talked about having school resource officers armed, which we noticed, and the other ones didn't seem to disagree with them. But in the case in Maryland, where you had the person who came in to shoot the school up, and the resource officer stopped them. And it was just interesting. We talked about on a previous show how the media didn't really give that any press because it flies in the face of their narrative.
Right.
Because that's an effective way when ultimately, whatever, we talked about that last week, the aim to disarm us. But moving right along, what else did they talk about, Mike?
Oh, man, they talked about so many other things. They obviously talked about the roads because that's a super hot topic right now. What I thought was really interesting, they talked about weed, which was funny, and especially because it was put on by the college Republicans, by the James Madison, thank you, College Republican Party. That's their political school there at Michigan State. And I think it was Colbeck who said, I know that I'm on the losing side of history with this one because there was, the last time I was here at Michigan State, there was a pro-weed demonstration across the hall, and then there was a Republican demonstration over on my side of the room, and we had 3 people in our room, and there was over 300 people in the other room. And that just goes to show you, the direction, the trend line, I think is the word that he used, that this nation is going. So he said, I think most of their stances was pro-medical and anti-recreational as far as weed goes. So that was interesting to hear, is that even the pretty staunch Republicans are coming around to pro-medical use for marijuana.
Yeah, and the thing about it is, I'm pro CBD oil. Just the THC part is.
Now, what's CBD oil?
CBD oil is like a derivative. It's the medicinal part of marijuana without the THC, which is the part that gets you high.
Okay.
So, you even have people give it to their children. So CBD oil is wonderful. It does really great things. But when you start getting into drugs, and to me, it's kind of hard to demonize medical marijuana, considering I'm talking about a second ago how I feel about the pharmaceutical companies.
Right.
They're giving people, look at opioids. They're giving people all other types of harmful drugs. So if you're giving people opioids, why not give them marijuana if you're going to follow that logic?
Yeah.
But for the recreational part, I think that would be horrible. That would be absolutely horrible to have recreational marijuana legal, because guess what? Who's going to take care of these people when they can't go to work? Who's going to take care of their kids when they can't take care of them anymore? The taxpayer. So,
yep.
No, that's all bad. All bad.
It's coming, though. The Democrats are pushing hard for it. It's already been legalized in, Colorado and California and, Washington?
I have a whole other theory on their push to legalize marijuana, part of it, but I will leave that to another show.
All right. No, that's fair.
A 5-minute tangent.
Which, we've never done before here on Right on 14th. Yeah, right? All right. Next up on the docket is the caravan that's headed through Mexico. But before we go there, I want to remind everybody that we have many, many social media platforms. We're on Twitter, we're on Instagram, we're on Facebook, we're on SoundCloud, we're on iTunes, we're on Google Play. Heck, if you know it, we're there. Come like us. Let's be friends. And share whenever you see something that you really like, because we try and be active on all the social media. Just share it. Or if you've got something to say, like, hey, I really wish you guys would cover this thing, send us a message. And if you don't have any social media whatsoever, we definitely also have an email at righton14th. That's the number 14th at gmail.com. So any way you want to reach out to us, please. And if you don't have any sort of electronics whatsoever, we're always out in the community. You can find us at any of these town halls or debates or anything.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Any events you have, please let us know, because last night we did get opportunity to interview some people. So we do want to start collecting public opinion, I guess, if you will. I guess that's our way of data mining without violating your privacy. Okay?
Yeah.
But we do want to hear what people have to say, because I think the more people get their voices heard, the better it is for the nation. So please let us know anything you have going on. We'll be happy to be there.
Definitely. So back to the caravan. So currently, Trump is on this every day, right? He's talking about this caravan going through Mexico, and a lot of people are scratching their heads like, what the heck is he talking about? So here's the deal. There's about 1,000 either migrants or refugees, depends on your point of view, that are people that are headed through Mexico right now, north. And originally, they originated in Guatemala, which is a country that's been absolutely devastated by economic hardships, including drug crimes and just a whole host of issues, which, you know, may or may not have been brought on by the United States government in part, but let's bypass that entirely right now and focus on these people. So these people are literally in a caravan. They're headed north, and they are currently just south of Mexico City. And some of them say, yeah, you know, our destination is Mexico City. We want to stop there and just find permanent residence. And some of them are trying to get all the way up to the United States. And their claim is that they are refugees, that their home country is so rough and is so terrible that they can't stand to be there anymore, and that they are seeking asylum in Mexico and in the United States. And it's not the first time this has been done. This has actually been done. This is the fifth year that the caravan has happened. So it's not new, and they've gotten refugee status in the past from Mexico and from the United States. So they're just looking to do the same thing over again. And I know a lot of people feel real strongly about this. And myself included, right? Is the fewer people that we can have walking across the southern border is the better. But at the same time, we gotta get out this message, right? That Republicans aren't completely heartless, and that if these people are indeed refugees of something terrible, a terrible situation in their own home country, then we do need to at least grant them temporary residence until their own country is sufficiently standing that they can go home. Christina's over here taking deep breaths, like, come on, what do you got? What do you got? Because
No, I'm such a child.
Yeah?
Like, you see, I'm going, I'm wiggling from side to side, breathing. I want to say something.
well, it's true, right? If they're going to get murdered in their home country, then we can't in good conscience let them stay there.
Oh my God. Okay. This is how I feel. I'm trying to think of the most nice way to say. I really empathize with those people suffering. Let me first say that. I truly empathize with human suffering. But how many billions of people, millions, excuse me, I don't want to oversay billions.
No, billions is
how
probably
many
right.
millions or billions of people are suffering? We can't take in everybody. You know what I'm saying?
It's
There
true.
has to be a cap. And I
Yes.
truly empathize with those people. But there are 2 points I want to make with this. Number one, why don't those people fight for their country? That is a good point.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, why are millions and millions of people leaving instead of fighting for their country? One reason why they can't, I wonder what their gun laws are like.
That's a good point, definitely.
So what are their gun laws? And so that should be a message to us as Americans, why it's so important to protect our gun laws. Because a lot of people who are fleeing, it's because they're unarmed. They're unarmed, and what can they do? If your federal government is heavily armed and you're unarmed, many times the only thing you know to do is to run.
Yeah.
So that should be a lesson to us as to why we need to protect our Second Amendment so dearly in order to keep our country the way we want it to be. But also, I really feel like people have to fight for their own country, because the most important thing they have is human capital. Every country, our most valuable asset is human capital. And for those countries, how can they ever rebuild if their strongest and the best, their brightest minds, the people with the most ingenuity leave? Then they will always be third world countries, and then also a distress to us, and did you see the video? I think I sent it to you, the video where it was like the mini riot.
Yeah, at the border, and border security was fighting them back.
Right, and this is the crazy part. So I searched around to see if anybody else was covering the story. Now, you see it's footage.
Yeah.
And you see the footage of the Border Patrol agents standing there, yelling at the people. But then the people, it was like they were howling back at them. And I didn't really see it covered anywhere else. So that's what led me to believe it, because it was actual footage of this happening. So, I don't know the details of the situation, but even with the whole caravan thing, and it's an organization that's organizing this. You know what I'm saying? So it's that's an invasion. How do you just show up with thousands of people like, oh, you need to let them in and give them free food, free medical care, free
Right.
housing?
Especially when there's so much need in our own country, right? All you got to do is drive around to the southern part of the 14th Congressional District and see, good Lord, there's a lot of people in our district that need a lot of help.
I mean, my goodness, all you have to do is drive down 6 Mile, okay? Just take a ride down 6 Mile for a little bit and you'll see plenty of help.
Yep.
So, my thing is I empathize with those people deeply, but our primary concern have to be our own American citizen. And for us Republicans and for the conservatives who are watching, that is a message that we must constantly push because that is an argument Democrats will not win with us. They cannot win because their agenda with illegal immigration is to import voters. That's it. Their goal is to import voters. And also, it hurts disproportionately the poor communities. So since Democrats claim they love poor people so much, then why are you supporting a policy that disproportionately hurts them? Remember the story we talked about either last week or the week before about Chicago?
Yep.
Okay, so ICE did a raid at a bun factory. The wages they were paying the illegals were $10 an hour. They hired a bunch of Americans. The wage was $14 an hour. I mean, so that's Americans who are no longer working, who have at least a somewhat decent wage you're starting with.
Oh, yeah.
Anyway.
No, that seems like a no-brainer, right? Is that the more people that we let into this country, at least illegally, right, they're going to work for wages that are undercutting American workers, and the American workers then are going to have a higher unemployment rate, and they're going to suffer more. So in reality, illegal immigration really does hurt Americans as it stands. And yes, we can take in a significant number of either immigrants or refugees on a regular basis, but that doesn't mean we should take in everybody on a regular basis because America does have limits and we can't take everybody that wants to come to America.
And that's the point. We have limits. And then a funny part about Mexico is much crap as they give us. Two things. They have a very strict immigration policy in Mexico. You know what I'm saying? And so the Mexican government, yes. In fact, I saw a thing on Tucker Carlson where they were deporting Mexicans. They were deporting black Mexicans saying they looked Haitian and were deporting them. Tucker Carlson did a whole thing. He had Jorge Ramos, the guy from Univision or whatever.
Well, that's crazy.
Yeah, and he Tucker Carlson mentioned that about Mexico doing that, and the guy just sat there and looked. He didn't even negate what Tucker Carlson had to say.
Wow.
So Mexico can go kick bricks. They can kick bricks with dry toes.
Pound sand, yeah.
Yeah, come on. You guys you deport people for absolutely no reason. Their own citizens. We're talking about actual Mexican citizens they're deporting. In addition, if they catch people coming into their country illegally, they have very stiff penalties.
Yeah.
So how are we horrible for doing the same thing? I feel like Mexico, I don't think they are as much as our friend as we like to think they are.
Yeah.
That's I personally believe that. I mean, you're a hypocrite. Now, if they had this lax immigration policy and weren't deporting their own citizens because they look like they come from somewhere else, then maybe we could have a conversation. But since you guys are doing that, and again, Jorge Ramos is always there running his mouth. When Tucker Carlson grilled him about it, he had
nothing to say about it.
He just looked. He didn't deny it.
Funny how that works.
It's very funny how it works.
And the whole situation is supposed to be remedied here by two things, right? The omnibus that just passed a couple weeks ago had $170 million that was specifically allocated to border security. And part of that was to physical barriers, like fences or walls, and then part of it was allocated to personnel resources. And so that's going to be ICE and border security. But on top of that, Trump announced today, which is Wednesday for everybody that's watching the Facebook Live, come watch us on Facebook Live, that he is actually going to deploy the National Guard to the southern border in order to protect the southern border. Now, this is completely unprecedented, never happened before. And what's interesting about this is I've been asking about this for years. But at the same time, I am so torn because that's literally ICE's job. That's literally the border security's job is to protect the border. But on the same hand, that's also literally the national what's the word I'm looking for here? The fourth branch of the military. Not the Air Force, not the Navy, not the Army. National
Guard?
Thank you. It's literally the National Guard job. I don't know why I just completely... It's literally the National Guard's job. I'm getting laughed at right now by our audio engineer and by Christina. Thank you for that. I appreciate that. But will the border be more secure when we got the National Guard down there? Yeah, probably. Is it going to give more people more money because they're technically deployed? Yeah, probably. So I got a tough time fighting against this one.
Yeah, no, I think it's a good idea, and especially with the caravan. I mean, because the whole footage of that, I guarantee you, like, at least people I know who are Democrats or who not people who are politically active were just livid. Like, people were so angry. Like, are you serious? Like, people just demanding it. So I am assuming that the whole caravan business probably prompted his urgency.
Certainly. Certainly.
I'm sorry, guys. I just think it was so funny. I have a weird sense of humor. Mike, please continue.
No, that's about all I got to say on this one. So there is a caravan. It is coming through Mexico. It may or may not reach the United States, but regardless, Trump has instituted the National Guard to protect us against illegal immigration through the southern border.
Yeah. So moving right along, the shooting at YouTube. So, I don't know a lot about this, Mike. Maybe you can tell the audience about
All right. So this is another tragic shooting that's happening. There's been a lot of these in the news lately, and this is unfortunately one more. So this one's unique in a couple ways, is that let's just start off with the facts. So yesterday, 4/3, a woman opened fire in the YouTube headquarters, and she injured 3 people and ended up inflicting a self-inflicted gun wound on herself, which ultimately resulted in her dying. And that's really about as much as we know. What we know more about her is that she is an online personality. That is what she has made for herself. That has been her sole source of income by the sound of it. And she lived either with her grandparents or with her parents. Sidebar real quick here is that we as the 14th Congressional District, or at least as a podcast, are going to try and not talk about the person and mention her name and show her picture because we don't really want to glorify people that have done these sorts of things. Anyways, sidebar done. She is an online personality. She's had 4 YouTube channels, and she's a vegan and Turkish activist who posts up a lot of YouTube videos. And recently, she's been increasingly upset because of YouTube's policies that have been discriminating and promoting some videos over other videos. Now, YouTube comes to the rescue here and says, oh, no, we're just curating lists for users. We're not discriminating against certain people's videos. But this woman felt extremely shorted by the system. And so she was upset with YouTube as a whole and has been saying that on YouTube in addition to other places, and apparently was so upset that it made her buy, it appears to be a 9mm handgun, and then proceed with this horrific act of injuring 3 people and then ending her own life. So that's kind of the facts that we have it as of now. I guess the good news is she's a bad shot and only hurt... that's the good news, is that she's a bad shot and only hurt 3 people here, but... it's more gun violence in the United States, which is not good. We need to find a way to fix this as a country.
Yeah, and it all goes to something is wrong with our culture as to why we kill people so easily. Because as we know, we've always had guns around. We talked about it. Why are we just so prone to kill people? Some of it's like people are very emotionally unstable.
Yeah.
Like if you even observe people just in your everyday life, it seems like people are. I mean, of course, this is my first and only life, so I can't say fully what people were like 30 years ago when I was 2. But it just seems like people can't cope with life as well. Like they can't. There's lots of theories for why that is, which I won't get into, but people are seeming to be unable to cope because why are you just going to shoot people when things don't go your way? It's interesting what you mentioned about YouTube and their curated lists. Prager is to either YouTube or Google. They're one and the same, so it doesn't matter. But Prager is sending YouTube because they've been caught demonetizing conservative videos. So this is it is to me at least the biggest battle right now is for information.
Yes.
That's why me and Mike are even doing this. It's an information war. Complete info war. That's what's happening right now. And a lot of the giants like YouTube and Google and Twitter, Twitter shadow blocking people. So if you don't know what shadow blocking is, so basically Twitter blocks you, but you don't know you're blocked. You know what I'm saying? So they shadow block people and all this kind of stuff. They've been doing this for a while in order to suppress the conservative voice because the reason why Donald Trump won is because of independent media. I believe that wholeheartedly. Now, do I have any numbers to back it up? No. I the way I observe the world is through like a philosophical lens. I look at the philosophy behind stuff. So a lot of times when I come to a conclusion, I don't necessarily have all the numbers. But how many of us really listen to? I listen to independent media all the time. You know what I'm saying? Because many of these people who their sole motivation is just to get out the information. You know what I'm saying? Because they care about their country, whereas a lot of times your network news or these people are getting paid, so they're looking to make clicks and get stories. It's not about getting a story right. It's about getting the story first.
Yes.
Or some of them have an ideological agenda and perpetuate that, So to mention, also to throw in there about the whole Facebook and Cambridge Analytica. So we're not going to go through, you watch your regular programs for that. We're here once a week. So we kind of just want to get to the meat and potatoes of it. But the interesting part about the Cambridge Analytica thing is it wasn't a problem until it helped Donald Trump's election. Because Barack Obama was using this same type of analytical services to get elected. But mysteriously, when Donald Trump used these companies, all of a sudden it's this big, evil, and horrible thing. So we're not being intellectually honest here. If it's really a problem, then call out everybody. Don't just call out this company who helped him. So you guys are full of crap, flat out. That's how I feel, So
Yeah, no, I'm with you on that one.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was going to go back to YouTube real quick and talk about how they are suppressing conservative voices in particular. And you can see that by Cambridge Analytica getting suppressed. And we've had people, all sorts of gun videos have recently gotten suppressed. And this has really shown its face in ad revenue, where they just straight up demonetize almost any sort of conservative YouTuber in any way, shape, or form. And so when this person that did this horrific shooting at the YouTube headquarters says that she feels like she's being discriminated against, she is probably right, is that YouTube's quote-unquote curation does specifically filter out people that don't have the narrative that YouTube wants to promote. And so I really loved YouTube for the first, 10 years of its life, where it was just a straight-up viewing platform. And then they instituted the top page, where the most popular and trending videos started to get up to the top page. And then they started to, quote-unquote, curate the top page, where something that only had a couple thousand views would be at the top. And you'd think, I wonder how that got there. And they tried to shine a little bit of light on it and say, we've got algorithms that really promote what should be on the top page because we think that you guys are going to want to watch that. And what that says to me is that's censorship. And that's them forcing upon us what they want us to watch and how they want us to watch it. And it's a shame, really, because they used to be a purely like broadcast. You find the videos, you like the videos, and the video makes it on its own merit. It's not that way anymore. So while it is tragic what happened with this woman at the YouTube headquarters, she's not wrong, and that YouTube is purposefully tweaking what you see.
Yeah, because what's interesting is like I had to get a new phone. So long story short, I still need to sign into my YouTube account, funny enough. But like how you go to your top page list?
Oh, yeah.
It's all like entertainers. I mean, it's almost like I know I'm a conspiracy theorist, so I know I'm a little bit out there on some of the things, but there is a lot of evidence to kind of the things that I believe in. I mean, why is it that all the top videos are all like entertainment, and maybe a few informational things are just hard leaning? Why? Who are these people? Glenn, I believe it's a globalist agenda, but I mean, who are these people? Why are all of our entertainment platforms all leaning one way? You know what I'm saying? And it's not until things become commercialized, they begin to all lean one way. Prior to commercialization, it was independent. So it's a very powerful group of individuals who want to control not just our our information, but also our entertainment. Remember, we were talking about, I think we mentioned it on the show, like during even President Trump's inauguration, he couldn't get he had a hard time getting entertainment. Performers, because the people were being shamed. Like, I think Botticelli, one of the opera singers, a friend of his, was getting death threats. And then Jennifer Holliday, this singer who wanted to perform, and she had Broadway houses and different performance venues saying, if you perform for the inauguration, we're going to cancel your shows. I mean, it was so, the level of pushback that's coming from the entertainment industry, like, why? Who is the puppet master? It's definitely a puppet master, because there's no way in the world all the entertainment industry, every entertainer thinks one way. That is impossible.
See, I don't necessarily agree with that because I think people who are artistic, I almost made a mistake and said autistic. People who are artistic tend to have a left-leaning perspective because I feel like you have to use that side of your brain to be compassionate. I feel like the same side of the brain that is compassionate is the same side of the brain that art comes from. And the opposite side of your brain, the analytical side, is the side that math and reason and stuff come from. And so that's why I feel like most engineers are Republicans and most, groupies are Democrats because that's the side of the brain that they use.
My man, groupies.
I don't know where I was going.
I just changed you, Mike. Yes, that's what they are. They're groupies.
They're groupies.
but you have a really, really good point to that because in order to create, you have to feel.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? So a lot of times when you're feeling, you become very empathetic and compassionate to others.
Yep.
I do get what you're saying. I totally agree with you. However, to me, it's like an absolute though. I can see if it would be a thing if they had a higher percentage of entertainers and artists who were left-leaning. I agree. But for it to be just everybody,
yeah.
If you really think about it, other than Clint Eastwood, who else is a prominent conservative in the entertainment industry?
See, I don't pay attention to the entertainment industry, so that's...
Fair point.
I don't watch TV. I don't listen to Top 40. I don't watch the Academy Awards and the Emmys and the... What's the third one? Academy, Emmys, and
no Grammys. No,
Grammys.
But
yeah. See, I don't even know the names.
But the thing is, I for one, I don't watch them myself. But that's the reason why. Because I used to really love. Because I'm a music junkie, so I like that. But after a while, I don't I don't want to sit and watch. Because I've been a conservative ever since I was a teenager.
Yeah.
So I don't want to sit and watch a program where you dog out all conservatives. Who wants to sit and watch a program where you're being insulted?
Right.
So just like. Forget you guys. Like, screw you guys. I don't want to listen to that. You know what I'm saying? But but if you sit back and you really took the time to observe it, all of them think one way. So to bring this full circle with YouTube and our whole point is definitely information going on using media entertainment. Because even if you look at the political campaigns of Hillary Clinton, who does she have out there dancing and shaking their behinds for her? She had people like Jennifer Lopez and Jay-Z and Beyonce and Madonna out there. Name some celebrities who were out hitting the stump for Trump.
There's Tommy Lauren.
I'm talking about entertainment. I put down my juice. I just really, Mike.
All right. You ready? You ready to move on to the main topic for this week?
We're moving on. Okay, so moving on. The topic we want to talk about next was criminal justice reform. So that is a really important issue to solve. And the one thing about the criminal justice reform, the bright side of this issue, there's a lot of bipartisan support on how to reform this issue. So this isn't like all one side. I do think sometimes you have the extremes, which I'll get into a little bit. I think sometimes people on the left can go to one extreme of victimizing people who committed crimes because oftentimes many of the people who do commit crimes, they come from very broken environments. A lot of factors go into why they commit crimes because I'm of the belief that many of us in the right conditions are capable of almost anything in the right conditions. However, that doesn't negate the fact the person needs to be punished. So you don't victimize them either. That's a horrible thing to do because they need to pay for what they did. No matter what happened in your life, you still can't victimize others. And then there's the other side of the lock them up and throw away the key attitude either. That is not helpful either. Even if you look at it from a purely selfish perspective, that person has to come out back into society. So what type of person are you bringing back into the public? Because if I'm a person who's been in prison for a significant amount of time and then I come out back into my community and I can't find a job, I can't find anywhere to live, well, the probability of me coming out committing another crime is going to be extremely high versus a person who has been rehabilitated while in prison and they come out and they're able to get a job and find some small place to live, then they're likely to be on the track to recovery and being a contributing member to society instead of finding another victim. So the United States has 5% of the world's population, but we have 25% of the prison population. So
it's insanely disproportionate. Mm-hmm. And when you view it against other countries around us, right, is that per 100,000 people, we've got almost twice as many as the next leading country, South Africa. I guess Russia's kind of in between. But then Europe is down at almost 100 per 100,000, and we're up over 700 per 100,000, which is just crazy. So 7 times more than than Europe's incarceration rate is too high, I think we can all say. And then when you just look at the percentage of adult males that are incarcerated, almost 5% of black males are incarcerated. That's almost 1 in 20 black males, when it's more like 1 in 140 for white males. And again, roughly about 1 in 50 for Hispanics. The disproportionate ratios here is stark.
Yeah, and it's a lot of factors if you go, especially when you get into the whole war on drugs thing, which we'll get into later, which kind of led to some of that disproportionate figure. So that's the whole with the crack versus cocaine. You get more time for crack versus powder, and that is some of the reason why you have that disproportionate figure, which led to cycles upon cycles of violence and crime. And then once you have a felony and all these other things, so a lot of people, they'll be in prison for 10 or 15 years for crack. Or no longer than that, you get way more time for crack compared to powder. And then once you come out, you can't find a job, you can't find any way. So what else do you know how to do? You go back and sell drugs, which ultimately you're selling poison to people. So you're not a complete victim because actually you're victimizing other people for your own gain. However, if we rehabilitated people while they were inside, then again you would be releasing a beneficial member to society instead of somebody who feels hopeless and is going back to their old tricks, if you will. So interestingly, about 1 in 5 inmates in federal prisons are foreign-born, and more than 90% of those are in the United States illegally.
Which is crazy. So almost 20% of the people in our prisons are in this country illegally. Can someone explain to us, please, write to us in the Facebook comments or Facebook later or email us, why do we not ship these people back to where they're from? Why are we paying money to house them here? Good taxpayer dollars are going to keep people here that are here illegally.
Mike, right now, I guess I'm the theatrical representation of what you're saying.
It's insane.
It is. It's the dumbest thing in the world. Why do we not send them back home?
Right? If we could cut 20% out of our federal budget for housing inmates tomorrow, why would we not do that?
And then the thing about it is, what's something we should have looked up, Mike?
Yeah.
I wonder what the recidivism rate is for these people. Because not only do they have a felony, but they're in the country illegally.
Right.
And people have to eat. So they're going to commit a crime. And what people fail to realize, like what Donald Trump and the ICE raids, they were going after felons.
Right.
Which, for one, when you're in the country illegally, that's already a crime. So you're already a criminal to begin with because you're here illegally. But secondly, they were going after people who've committed felonies. So you're a felon and you're in the country illegally. Where are you going to work? You're not going to work. You're going to sell drugs. That's what you're going to do. You're going to go sell drugs or commit some kind of other petty crime or steal somebody's identity.
Hold on now. They can work in the agriculture field.
For pennies. I know.
Yeah.
Of course, Mike is not suggesting that it's so, but he's just saying it's true. It's a true point, that they can do that.
They will find a place to work because we don't disincentivize American companies enough to hire illegal workers.
You know what? I agree with you 100%, but I also think it's significant of the felony population. That's what I'm talking about.
Right.
Let me clarify. Let me clarify what I was saying. When I was talking about the people who have felonies, not the average illegal. I'm not saying your average person who's here illegally. Right. The average person who's here illegally is out committing a crime. No. That's not what I'm. Additional crimes. Let me clarify that.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that the average illegal immigrant is creating I can't even talk. Committing additional crimes.
Right.
I'm talking about the ones who already have committed a felony and been to prison.
Right.
What are they going to come out and do? Mm-hmm. And I wonder what the recidivism rate is amongst them.
Extremely high, at least compared to our neighbors, right? And especially when compared to Western Europe.
It's horrible.
Yes.
So, that is, So according to the U.S. Bureau of Justice Statistics, 220,300 adults were incarcerated in the U.S. in federal and state prison and jails in 2013. That's
almost 1% of all adults.
Yeah, so here are some causes. We kind of talked about the statistics. So here are some theories people talked about in regards to causes. One is the crime rate. Okay, the crime rate is, we are actually right now, according to the latest FBI statistics, our violent crime rate is actually down by 0.8%, which is really interesting with the FBI statistics, because I combed their website for a while, but it's like they didn't really give enough raw data. They more so gave percentage of increase, decrease as far as what we're seeing. However, our violent crime rate is down 0.8%, but the murder rate is up 1.5%. So all of the rape is down, which of course is a good thing. 2.4%. Robbery is down 2.2%. Aggravated assault is down 0.1%. Property crime, so a lot of them are down. The two that are seeing an increase is motor vehicle theft and murder. So, but some of the interesting things are, what are most people in prison for? So I lost my spot, but like 50% of people who are in federal prisons are in there for drug crimes, which is terrible.
Terrible how? Like terrible we need to get them out, or terrible like...
It's two sides to it.
Okay.
The way I look at things is there's always two sides to it. Because ultimately, even though, why are so many people in prison for drugs, but we have to keep in perspective that even though they may have not necessarily went out and physically beat a person up and murdered them, you're selling death. You're still killing people. You're just killing them, I guess, in an indirect way because they're facilitating in their own death.
So we should just legalize all drugs.
No. Never. Oh, my God. Let me go back up to... So you have the war on drugs, which the war on drugs, we've spent well over $1 trillion on the war on drugs, and it has proven to be completely ineffective. So there's a lot of concerns, especially in the 80s. So in the 80s is when we saw the spike in our prison population. I was reading it in one of my books for class that it was before the 1980s, we had a relatively low prison population. But in the 1980s, which would hit in the 80s, cocaine and crack. We know the whole thing mentioned earlier about crack, you get a disproportionate sentence. So, it's something to consider about this, which is really interesting. I saw that movie To Kill a Messenger. But prior to that, and reading about the whole Contra thing, so it wasn't that necessarily the Reagan administration participated, but as we see even with President Trump, the CIA can be a rogue operation within themselves. Where the CIA decides we're going to just go do something, and even if you look at President Trump, the CIA, a lot of them have been complicit in trying to harm him. So,
well, hold on. So what did the CIA do that was
So what happened
troublesome?
what was troublesome with the CIA was that they were allowing certain groups in Nicaragua to sell cocaine in America.
Okay.
So when they allowed them to sell the cocaine in America, it caused like a flood in the market. So the price dropped significantly, and that gave birth to crack, which harshly affected the prison population. So that's a whole nother story within itself, when you had a lot of teenage drug dealers and all kind of other stuff. And so you have people who, and typically like in the movie To Kill a Messenger, they were talking about specifically in like South Central Los Angeles. So you already had economically depressed people, and you poor, you have nothing, and now your communities, you have drugs to sell, you can't feed yourself. What are you going to do? It's just a hot mess. So you have that, something to consider. And then also mandatory minimum sentence, even under President Clinton. So like I said, both parties were complicit and to some extent in this. The 3 strikes rule, which also boosted up the prison population. Okay, so then you have private prisons, which is another factor, where 7% of state facilities are private prisons and 18% of federal prisons are private prisons. So that is not good because they have an incentive to keep people incarcerated, because the more bodies you have, the more money you make. So it's no real incentive to rehabilitate the people unless they got some type of tax benefit or some type of financial benefit based on how many of their prisoners didn't rescind.
So you're saying we should have a more rehabilitative criminal justice system as opposed to punitive, or?
It needs to be a hybrid.
Okay.
You need hybrid because, like I was kind of mentioning earlier, a lot of liberals like to victimize criminals, which is wrong because you've committed a crime, so you need to be punished. But then you have to lock them up and throw away the key, which is not good. So a couple of things that I thought that were really interesting is in the time of prosecution, the goal should be justice, not conviction. Because there's times where people, like this guy who went to prison, oh my God, it just popped in my head. He went to prison for like 20 years or something like that for a crime he didn't commit. He got like $1 million.
Yeah.
That's it? You go to prison for like 20 years and you get $1 million?
I mean, if he's making minimum wage, right, then $1 million is probably too much money.
What? What? No, you can't. If he'd been in prison for 20 years, you have no idea what he would have done with his life.
No, that's true.
So you have no idea. You can't make that assumption. So you should at least get $1 million for every year you've been in there unjustly.
$1 million per year.
If it's been 20 years of your life in prison for a crime you didn't commit, that's horrible.
It is horrible.
20 years of your life. Think about yourself right now at your age to spend the next 20 years in life in prison for a crime you did not commit. That is horrible.
So I feel like wading into the monetary value of like prison reform is not somewhere that we're educated enough to talk about.
Well, I mean,
Yeah?
Well,
All right.
No, but $1 million. I think I'm talking about it just as a fairness.
Okay.
You can't take away 20 years of somebody's life for a crime they didn't commit and just give them $1 million like see it later.
Yeah.
You robbed them of so. I mean, think about it even in court. If somebody is something like punitive damages. If I do commit a crime, I don't just pay back what I damaged or civil law. You know, you watch Judge Judy. I mean, anybody watch Judge Judy? You know, you owe somebody money or you did something to somebody, then you have punitive damages for the emotional harm. You know, that's $1 million a year for sure. That's what I believe at least. Another thing is something called restorative justice. So restorative justice, the idea is that some things can be solved in mediation, especially if it was a nonviolent crime where the victim and the perpetrator can interact with each other. Part of the beauty, if you will, of restorative justice is that they can humanize each other. Does that make sense what I'm saying? So the perpetrator can really see the face of the victim.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? Because a lot of times violent crimes are committed like randomly. And then we can humanize the perpetrator. And some people may say, why? They committed the crime. Once again, you have to remember this person is going to come out back into society. And depending, especially if it was a nonviolent crime or even if it was like if you robbed somebody, I think the person can be rehabilitated. So it also gives space for accountability. Because what happens is a lot of times when people go to prison, because they're not properly rehabilitated, they'll start to see themselves as a victim.
Right.
And they'll become angry and bitter and blame other people.
And that's problematic.
Especially when they come back out.
Yes.
And even in the prison culture, within the prison. Because a lot of times it's like this kill or be killed. It's like pure law of the jungle. So these people in there, I've actually read a horror, I won't even say it on air. I read a book, I read a horrible horror story of what one prisoner did to another, who this man was serving a life sentence, like natural life or something like that, and what he did to other prisoners. So a lot of times these people, they'll victimize the other prisoners, which causes these people to, it's just crazy. That's another subject.
It's problematic, right? Well, so in my view, at least, and correct me if I'm wrong here or if your opinion's different, is that the first priority of a sentence is to rehabilitate the person. And the second priority, very close second priority, is to make the person a productive member of society once they are rehabilitated.
Well, actually, I would say first accountability.
Okay.
Accountability first.
Yeah.
Then the rehabilitation second.
All right. And then third, reentrance into society as a productive member.
Right, because there's 600,000 people leave prison every year to go back into their communities. So that's a lot of people.
Yeah.
That's a whole lot of people.
600,000 people?
600,000 people.
Wow.
Go. So even if you're a lock them away, lock them up, throw away the key, like, oh, they committed a crime. So what? They shouldn't have done it. Again, you must remember these are 600,000 people coming back into your neighborhoods and communities. So what kind of person do you want to be your neighbor? Do you want the person who is psychotic, or do you want the person who's being rehabilitated to be your neighbor? You have to ask yourself that question. So the thing they struggle with is finding work, finding a place to live. And according to the ACLU, go figure, but they have some useful statistics about criminal justice. According to the ACLU, nearly 50,000 federal, state, and local legal restrictions affect the person when they leave. So a lot of times the person is basically like being punished twice.
Right.
So upon them leaving, of course you need to supervise them, and you need parole. You know what I'm saying? It all depends on what they did. There's a lot of factors involved I don't get into, but just some things to consider. As I mentioned earlier, 50% of people in federal prisons are there for drug crimes. So it's like, how are we handling this? So it would be useful to give them like some job training. You know, a lot of these people also, 70% of people in jail with serious mental illness also have substance abuse problems. So actually, when we were at the debate last night, I think Lieutenant Governor Calley was talking about treating drugs like it's treating drug addiction like a health problem. Right. Because a lot of the people, I think that would be useful, something to consider. And so I don't know. What do you think, Mike?
I completely agree. But the problem with that is that we as Republicans, we as conservatives are going to get railed for spending money on prisoners to A, teach them a new skill, whether it is like a skilled trade, and then B, spending money on them to help them to get over their addiction. Now, I think both of these things are worth it because I would much rather have a rehabilitated person that's a productive member of society come back into society as opposed to someone that gets out of prison and doesn't have anything to do and only knows one thing, and that one thing is whatever got them into prison to start with. So we have to prevent that. That will bring down the recidivism, and that will help us to make our society better.
Well, let me point this out. I know what you mean about the finance, but it's like if you're playing the long game, it's actually a cost benefit.
Yes.
You know, because like some of the statistics that criminal justice is the second fastest growing category of state budgets behind only Medicaid. And 90% of that spending goes to prisons. So actually we'll be saving money. Not only will we be saving money from warehousing people, like for example, the cost of imprisonment of each in California. Okay, so in California, they have 130,000 prisoners. It costs $75,000 a year. $75,560 per year in 2018 to wait, because the article was at the end of 2017. So that's how much it costs. So if you think about the people who you no longer have to pay to warehouse them, then you no longer have to pay for the police, the prosecution, the defense attorney, and that's a contributing taxpayer. It's a win-win situation. And not only that, these, unfortunately, most criminals are men. So that's a man who's home to take care of his family, who's there to nurture his children, who therefore won't go into prison themselves. So it is a long-term benefit to society.
I could not agree more.
So really quick, I know it's our time to go, but I do want to give a plug to a group called Cut 50, which is great because, like I said, the criminal justice reform, this bipartisan support is just about getting it done. Because Cut 50, like Van Jones, which some people may remember, but interesting, like him and Newt Gingrich have partnered with an organization which is part of Dream Corps called Cut 50. So it is truly a bipartisan organization who is truly looking to not only, and this is why I love what they're doing, because they're looking to keep communities safe and restorative justice and rehabilitating people. So you keep the community safe and you help rehabilitate these people. So again, we're not talking about child molesters. These are not the people we're talking about. We're talking about some people may have committed some type of drug crime or something of that nature, or a crime they committed as teenagers. But it is our time. We have to go.
All
Mike,
right.
any closing comments?
We will see you guys next week. Come like us on Facebook.
All right, thanks, guys.
See ya.
It's off. Give me 1 second for Facebook.
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
You don't sound convinced.
Oh, no.
Came in to give you the stink eye.
Oh, good.
Oh,
How you doing today?
sorry.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know there was a show after that. Was there one on the schedule?
Yeah,
Oh,
Oh,
sure.
sorry.
Oh, it was-
Sorry.
it's rescheduled, so it's not a regular.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's
show.
why, because I was going by, because I know every other.
I mean, this one, it's on here, but it's
Oh.
not normally after this show, so.
I messed up.
No, you're fine.
Sorry.
They're cool guys.
Start knocking on the door.